welcome to part 1, data preprocessing, and mostly welcome to the practical activities of this course. My name is Alain de Ponteves and I am more than happy to welcome you into this course. We're about to embark on a super huge journey, but yet a very exciting one, because we're going to build together a series of machine learning models from all the branches of machine learning. And speaking of these branches, well, you have them in front of you. That's the whole folder of this machine learning A to Z course, structured into all the different branches of machine learning, from data preprocessing, regression, classification, clustering, association rule learning, reinforcement learning, NLP, and deep learning. And now we're about to start part 1, data preprocessing, and this is the first very important step of this journey, because indeed, anytime you build a machine learning model, you always have a data preprocessing phase to work on, right? You have to preprocess the data in the right way so that the machine learning model that you're going to build can be trained the right way on the data. So we have to start with this step. This will not be the most exciting step, but I will make sure to do this very efficiently so that we can rapidly proceed to the branches of machine learning where we're going to build indeed some models. But before that, we have to master data preprocessing, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this part 1. Alright, so first of all, make sure that you have the same as what I have on my computer right now. This is the whole machine learning A to Z codes and datasets folder containing all the Python codes and all the R code, as well as all the datasets in each of the practical activities we're going to do together. The link of this folder was provided to you in the previous section, section 1, but don't worry, I will give you back this link in the beginning of every section so that I make sure you don't miss it. So if we are on the same page, let's do this. Let's go inside this part 1 data preprocessing folder, which is structured the following way. It has only one section, luckily for us, so that we can quickly get to the machine learning models. And as any folder in this course, well, it is structured the following way in two folders, first Python and then R. This Python folder contains, of course, all the Python implementations and the dataset, and this R folder contains all the R implementations with the same dataset. So now we're going to go into Python, because each time in each section, anytime we build a model, we're going to start first with Python and then R. Okay, so that if you are more interested in Python, well, you take the first part, and if you're more interested in R, you take the second part. And here I want to say something very important. This course is not meant for you to master both Python and R. We just covered the two tools so that anyone can learn machine learning on their preferred tool. So if you prefer Python, you can just do Python. If you prefer R, you can just do R. And if you want to learn both, well, you're welcome to learn both, but you don't have to. That's what I want to say, okay? So we're going to start with Python here. I'm going to teach you all the tools on data preprocessing, and there you go. That's the files you will find in this data preprocessing folder, in the Python folder. You will first find this data preprocessing tools implementation, which contains all the different tools of data preprocessing that you might have to use on your data sets in order to preprocess them the right way for your machine learning model. Then we have the data preprocessing template, which will be very useful for us to tackle any data preprocessing phase of our future machine learning model implementations in the following parts. So you will see, you will absolutely love this template. And we also have this data in a CSV file, data.csv, which is the data set on which I will show you how to implement all these data preprocessing tools. And just to give you some context, let's say that this dataset belongs to a retail company that collected some data from their customers, whether or not they purchased a certain product. So here each of the rows correspond to different customers, and for each of these customers, well, this company gathered their country, their age, their salary, and whether or not they purchased their product. All right, so that's a simple data set, but I wanted to use a simple one so that we can really focus on all the tools we're going to learn in this section. And speaking of them, well, now I suggest that we start this data preprocessing tools implementation, because indeed this course is really action-based. You're going to learn by doing in this course, and therefore for this implementation and each future implementation, we will re-implement it from scratch. And so there you go, our first implementation will be for all the data preprocessing tools. And now, we're going to open this file, and as I explained in the first section of this course, you can either open it in Google Collaboratory by just double-clicking here, or on Jupyter Notebook if you don't like Google Collaboratory. So feel free to select your most comfortable environment, and for Google Collaboratory lovers, well, there we go. Let's open our data preprocessing tools, and first I'm going to show you exactly the tools that we're going to implement, and mostly that you're going to learn for your machine learning models. All right, so there you go. That's the whole implementation. Let me scroll down a bit, and as you can see, you will get many tools. So let's have a look at them one by one through the table of contents. So the first thing I'll teach you is how to import the libraries. These are the libraries we will always use in any machine learning model implementation, so we will include them in the template so that they can be ready to use for our implementations. Then I will teach you how to import the dataset, that exact same dataset which I just introduced to you a few seconds ago. That dataset, I will show you how to first upload it on Google Colab and then import it in your Python file. All right, so that's the second step, importing the dataset. Then I will teach you how to take care of missing data, because indeed, in most of the datasets you'll work with in your machine learning career, you might encounter some missing data. And that's the case here for our dataset. As you can see, there is a missing salary here and a missing age, and I will teach you exactly what to do in order to handle this. There are some techniques which are the most relevant to then, optimize the training of your machine learning models, and I will show you the best of these techniques. All right, then after taking care of the missing data, I will teach you how to encode categorical data, whether it is the independent variable, which is your predictors, or the dependent variable, which is what you want to predict. So as you can see in our data set, well, we have actually two categorical variables. We have this one, the country column, containing indeed 3 categories, France, Spain, and Germany, as opposed to all these numerical values in the other variables. And also we have this categorical variable containing 2 categories, yes and no. All right, so I will teach you what to do with that situation so that then you can be ready to pre-process any data. After this, I will teach you how to split the data set into the training set and the test set. And that step is very important because each time you want to train a machine learning model, well, you have to create 2 separate sets. One training set where you're going to train your machine learning model to understand the correlations inside your data set, and one test set that you're going to use to evaluate your machine learning models. And that, therefore, on new observations, because the test set, is like new data on which the model wasn't trained. So that's very important to do this in order to check that indeed there is not overfitting, when your machine learning model is trained too well on the training set, so well that it doesn't perform well on new observations. And so that's why this step is very important, and we will include it in the data preprocessing template. And finally, I will teach you a very important tool that you might have to use in some of your machine learning model implementations, which is feature scaling, which actually scales all your features to make sure they are on the right scale. So you won't have to use that all the time. We will see, of course, in each of the machine learning model implementation whether we have to apply feature scaling or not. So you'll have everything, but we have to include this feature scaling tool in the data preprocessing toolkit because indeed we'll have to use it from time to time. All right, that's the table of contents, and we're going to re-implement all this from scratch. However, if you feel you're comfortable with all these tools and you understand them already and you can't wait to move on to the machine learning implementations, well, feel free to just read this code and make sure you understand it 100% and then move on to part 2, regression, where we're going to build our first regression models. However, I really insist that this course must be action-based, so I really want you to take action as much as you can, and that's why if you're ready to do this for data preprocessing, well, stay with me in this part 1 because we're going to re-implement each and every single one of these tools. And to do this, because remember that this Colab file is actually in read-only mode, well, to do this we'll have to create a copy by clicking File here and then Save a Copy in Drive. This will, as you can see, create a copy of this Google Colab implementation on which you will be able to modify and mostly code your own implementation. All right, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to actually re-implement all these code cells from scratch so that I make sure that you take action And therefore, we're gonna remove each one of these code cells by clicking this trash button here, but make sure not to remove, well, the text cells. This is a text cell, this is a code cell, so make sure to only remove the code cells so that we can actually keep this well highlighted structure of this implementation. All right, almost done. A few code cells left, trash button, trash, 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 and almost done. There we go. All right, so that's the whole structure of this implementation. These are all the tools that you will probably need when pre-processing your future data sets for your future machine learning models. So it's very important that you understand well this implementation. So whenever you're ready, let's start from the next tutorial to master data pre-processing.